The Simpsons, one of the most popular TV shows to ever exist, as well as being the most innovative and influential. It is an animated series that loves to satirize the American way of life, while also having grounded characters and emotional moments. You have the fat idiot Homer, the overcaring Marge, the radical Bart, the smart Lisa, and the baby Maggie. I like the show. I wouldn't say it's one of my favourites, but it'd certainly be close. Seasons 2 to 8 were fantastic, and are the only seasons that matter. It was from 2007 to 2009 when my obsession with anything Simpsons related was at its absolute peak. I remember every weeknight after school watching some of the newer episodes of the show on Sky One and recording them with my PSP camera, just so I could watch them afterwards. We didn't have cable boxes that were able to record programs back then, so this was the best I could do. After growing up a bit, I realised just how much the show fell from grace. It's such a shame that it went downhill ever since the turn of the century, becoming a parody of itself at this point. They had recently made Homer stop strangling Bart, which is good and all, trying to stop the promotion of child abuse, but it's kind of ironic considering that Fox and now Disney have been choking the life out of the show for over 2 decades. But long before the days of the mouse, there was a moment in time when all the planets aligned, a moment that will never happen in the Simpsons cultural zeitgeist again. You see, 2007 was a busy year for Springfield's nuclear family.
Nuclear. It's pronounced nuclear.
Sorry, Homer. I mean nuclear family. You've got the second half of season 18 and the first half of season 19 all going on within the space of 12 months. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. Instead, we are going to look at the movie and the game, both appropriately named The Simpsons Movie and The Simpsons Game. I wonder how long it took them to come up with those names. They must have been paid overtime for those. Despite being released in the same year, they have nothing to do with one another, except coming out long after the show's peak. So no, it's not the Simpsons Movie Game, as some people mistakenly think, or the Simpsons Game movie. So without further ado, let's all pack our bags and visit Springfield. Wait, where is Springfield? Oh yeah, the show never stated where exactly it's located. The Simpsons Movie released on the 27th of July. On a budget of $75 million, it managed to rake in over $500 million. It became the 8th highest grossing movie of 2007, the 2nd highest grossing hand-drawn animated movie behind The Lion King, and the 47th highest grossing animated movie of all time. I know the last one doesn't sound that impressive. It even got nominated at the Golden Globes for Best Animated Feature Film, so it's safe to say that the movie was a success. But the question is, what do I think of the movie? I really like it. I vaguely remember going to the cinema to watch it while on holiday in Kerry.
Well, there was 45 sheep missing, like, in the lambs and everything. The sheep just count out a nice bit of money, like.
I even owned the DVD for the movie and watched it over and over again. I enjoyed it that much. I used to think this was one of the best movies ever made, but back then I was a child and I used to think everything was the best. Looking back on it now, the best way to describe the movie would be like watching an above average episode from the show's golden age, and believe me, that's a compliment. What's the movie actually about? Well, it's about Homer polluting the Springfield Lake, which results in the EPA, which stands for the Environmental Protection Agency, and not Electronic F***ing Arts, imprisoning the entire town inside a giant glass dome. After escaping from the dome, the family moved to Alaska. Homer and Bart do some hunting in the woods to keep themselves from starving. They find out that Springfield will blow up and they want to go back and save everyone. Except Homer. He's like, "Screw them, they tried to kill me for trapping them in the dome." And Marge is like, "Well, it's our town. We still have friends and family there. You can redeem yourself." And Homer's like, "No, we're staying here." So Marge takes the kids with her and Homer ends up all alone. He meets a lady who will most definitely not offend any Native Americans whatsoever. She helps him get an epiphany. He realizes during his little acid trip that he can save himself by saving Springfield. Meanwhile, Marge and the kids get captured and brought back to Springfield. A bomb is placed in the dome. Homer takes it and Bart throws it out the window, saving everyone, destroying the dome in the process, and everyone rebuilds the town. Yeah, the movie isn't the movie's strong suit. I find Homer half the time to be irritating. He was the one responsible for putting the town in trouble, with the people of Springfield already agreeing to stop dumping in the lake. He doesn't really apologize for what he did, neither to the town or his family. It was kind of half-assed, really.
You know, the word apology is tossed around a lot these days, but when it comes from in here...
But of course it's not a terrible story by any means. As far as adapting a TV show into a movie is concerned, it's at least serviceable. There's an Irish character called Colin who is around Lisa's age. He is a huge fan of helping the environment, like Lisa, so those two are basically made for each other. I do have 3 problems with this. Number 1, the movie doesn't spend much time developing their romance. However, I understand that there's enough going on, and considering it's one of the least important subplots in the entire film, I'll cut the movie some slack for this. Number 2, it feels like Colin was only created in the first place to give Lisa a reason to go back to Springfield, which is silly because I'm sure she has friends in the show. Number 3, I hate how stereotypical Colin's accent is.
Just moved from Ireland. My dad's a musician.
He gives us Irish a bad name. We don't sound like fairy tale creatures.
Oh, sure, Big Ara. It's probably one of the worst accents I've ever heard in my life.
He only makes one more appearance after the movie, appearing in the episode He Loves to Fly and He Does, the first episode to air after the movie's release. Yeah, he's now become a forgotten character in the Simpsons universe. I like the bond that Bart and Ned Flanders have. At first, Bart is cold towards him, as you would expect if you've watched the show before, but after they go out fishing, he begins to warm up to Ned, realizing that he's actually a caring and nice guy all around. To him, Ned's basically like the father he wished he had, and Bart likes to drill that into Homer, even drawing hair and a mustache on Homer's picture to make it look like Ned. When Homer reunites with Bart at the end, Bart's like, "I still hate you. Flanders is much better than you'll ever be." And Homer's like, "I know I'm not a good father, but you could still save the town with me by throwing the bomb out." And Bart is like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." And he just abandons Ned. Poor guy. Although he gets over it quickly.
What's that smell? It smells like bacon. And not Kevin Bacon. What would he be doing here? No, it's a different kind of bacon. It's the pig from the Simpsons movie.
Oh, that stupid pig. Now I like pigs. I think pigs are cute. But not this pig. This one is Pig Hitler. Spider Pig, Harry Plogger, whatever its name is. It's the reason this story happens in the first place. Imagine if Homer didn't turn up to Krusty Burger at the very moment the pig was about to die. It would have turned into a nice, big, chunky, juicy piece of ham. Sorry, I was just thinking about something else. Either that or he would have ended up in a pork chowder in Keenan and Kel. Homer adopts the pig and they both become friends. After a while, the pig's waste is put into a giant container. Marge tells him to get rid of it. He tries to put it in a waste centre, but it's busy. So he goes to the lake to dump it instead of waiting. Why? Because some donut store was giving away free donuts and they were selling really fast. Man.
You are a prick.
The pig even tries to kill the Simpsons during their escape, after everything Homer did, saving him and taking care of him. You ungrateful pig. I assumed it died in the house because that was the last time we see him in the film. But in a deleted scene, he helps paint a doghouse, confirming he is indeed alive.
How disappointing.
Seeing a band called Green Day perform a concert on the Springfield Lake in the beginning of the movie and end up dying because the lake is so polluted is probably the most Springfield thing ever. But considering a squirrel falls into the same lake later on in the film, ends up surviving and becoming a mutated monstrosity, makes me think that Green Day survived too and would go on to join the X-Men. It is strange to see Arnold, no, we're not doing that joke again, in the Simpsons universe. He plays the US president in this story. It's strange because they already have a parody of Arnold called McBain, but they both sound the same.
Himmel!
I'll have to go back to making family comedies.
Captain, I have proof that he's head of an international drug cartel.
Like, it's weird. Anyway, he gets tricked by a man called Russ Cargill, who is the head of the EPA and is the one responsible for the dome, along with almost killing the entire town. I kinda like him. He has this sense of self-awareness that doesn't get annoying. He's my favourite movie-only character, except for the first episode after the movie came out. And he could really be funny at times.
I want 10,000 tough guys, and I want 10,000 soft guys to make the tough guys look tougher. And here's how I want them arranged. Tough, tough, soft, tough, soft, soft, tough, tough, soft, soft, tough, soft.
Sir, I'm afraid you've gone mad with power.
Of course I have. You ever tried going mad without power? It's boring. No one listens to you.
As I said before, I like this film, and all of the good things definitely outweigh the bad here. So go give it a watch, but be warned, you will see a 10-year-old boy's penis.
That's disgusting!
The Simpsons Game released on the 30th of October, 4 months after the release of the movie, published by EA and developed by one of their subsidiaries, EA Red Shore Studios. It sold really well, 9 million units to be exact. The Simpsons Game's reputation was mostly mixed, with some sprinkling of positivity here and there. For the movie, I described it as an above average episode during the show's golden era. So what kind of episode is the game? Well, it feels like an average post-season 9 episode, which isn't all that impressive. For me personally, I do have some fun memories playing this as a kid. I remember buying the game while I was staying over with some relatives in Liverpool back in the summer of 2008. I really wanted it so bad, and that's mostly because of the ad for the game that was on TV back then. You know, the one with Krusty the Clown narrating it.
Hey kids, are you sick and tired of video games that are horrible? That's why you love the Simpsons Game. It's got all your favorite Springfield characters, like the fat guy, the blue-haired dame, the annoying little kids, plus aliens, gangsters, evil augurs, and surprise guests. And the best part is, I'm the star. What? They can't play as me? What do you mean ancillary character? The Simpsons Game, rated T for teen.
It came out on Xbox 360, PS3, PS2, PSP, Wii, and DS. The 360 and PS3 versions are the definitive versions of the game, while the PS2, Wii, and PSP versions look slightly worse than their HD counterparts, along with some cut content. This was mostly down to the fact that they are not as powerful as either the 360 or PS3. The DS version is almost completely different gameplay wise. Now for the purposes of this review, I'm going to talk about the Wii version, as that is what I have played since I was about 9. Do you really want to know what I think of the game? Well, This is...
What? This is boring.
The game is about the Simpson family discovering that they are inside of a video game after Bart sees an instruction manual fall from the sky. Each family member all function differently. Homer can turn into a giant ball and crush enemies. He can also turn into some walking green sludge and shoot green projectiles.
I'm flying! I wonder if it's science and magic or super parts.
Marge can use her megaphone to turn people into protesters and use them to destroy or build landmarks. She can also use Maggie to help crawl around vents. Bart can turn into Bartman, who has the ability to glide and shoot people with his slingshot. Lisa uses her saxophone to stun enemies and use the power of Buddha to lift large objects and smite enemies. The family use their powers for their own personal reasons. Homer uses them to win an all-around-the-world themed food eating contest. Marge uses them to ban Grand Theft Scratchy. Bart uses them to stop a museum heist, and Lisa uses them to put loggers out of a job. While the family argue over how they should use their powers, aliens invade Springfield and take control of Lard Lad and the entire dolphin population. Bart and Lisa go to Professor Frink's house to ask for some help, but end up in a world called the Game Engine, a place full of video game characters and references. He gives them a strategy guide, which they use to take down the dolphins and Lard Lad, but the aliens are still around. The family accidentally end up in Frink's Game Engine. They meet their 8-bit selves, play in levels that parodies real video games, meet their maker, Matt Groening.
Yes, Mr. Groening.
It's Groening!
Are you sure?
No.
Get back to their own world, go to heaven, talk to God, find out it was him who dropped the manual earlier, and he helps bring Springfield back to normal.
Yeah, I don't particularly like the story in this one. It's not bad or anything. The show itself is done worse. But the movie story is basically Citizen Kane compared to the game story. It kind of feels half-baked. Like the motion controls.
The motion controls are terrible and completely unnecessary. There could be such a delay with your movements, or it doesn't pick up your movements at all. Sometimes you shake the nunchuck, the game thinks you shook the Wii remote, and vice versa. In other games on the Wii like Kirby's Epic Yarn and Super Smash Bros. Brawl, they don't have motion controls. You might argue that not having such controls for a game on the Wii would be pointless. To that I say,
what? No!
If anything, having motion controls be a requirement in those games would actively make them worse, because they were not made with a control scheme like that in mind. I'd rather just press a button, to be honest. Hitting enemies feels like hitting a concrete wall. It probably has some of the most unsatisfying melee mechanics I've ever played in a 3D action game. The previous Simpsons game that came out before this one was Simpsons Hit and Run, the game where you could run over children. It is an absolute classic, but while it may be dated in many ways, the game today is looked back on more fondly compared to the Simpsons game. Despite the limitations, it still has more charm with a better original soundtrack, mostly satisfying controls, and a more lively and visually interesting experience. When you hit someone in the game, whether it's by knocking them down with a vehicle or kicking them, they flail their arms around like a baby, and compare that to what happens in the Simpsons game. I said before that beating up people feels like hitting a concrete wall, and that's because they barely react to getting hit until the final blow, when they spin harder than Yuko Aioi. The levels, with the exception of a few, like Around the World in 80 Bytes and Enter the Cheat Tricks, look really dull and boring. The same goes for the cutscenes. What I find baffling about them is that some cutscenes are drawn in 2D animation, like the show, and the rest are done in CGI, using the in-game models. They flip-flop between the styles so often that it makes me wonder why they didn't just commit to one or the other. The character models when playing the game look fine enough. At least the kids actually look like kids. When compared to Hit and Run, the children of Springfield looked like they injected Lionel Messi's growth hormones, since they're almost as tall as the adults. But for whatever reason, in the Simpsons game, the 3D models in the cutscenes look ugly. The jokes in the game, like the movie, are mixed, if not a bit lame. Some of the jokes land and some don't. I like how Lisa calls out Marge for being a hypocrite by using violence to ban a violent video game, and Marge pretends not to hear her.
I'm sorry, Lisa, what? I just can't hear you over the roar of this appreciative crowd.
I like when Homer bites Moe's arm off. The game's version of Sonic the Hedgehog is just so funny. It looks way better than the original movie design, and this part cracks me up every time.
We need to stop these spaceships, and there's only one person in Springfield who's smart enough to figure out how. I drank blue juice from under the sink.
However, everything else didn't exactly tickle my funny bone. A lot of jokes are pretty much, do you get the reference to this popular IP? And I'm just sitting here like, yeah, I guess. What am I supposed to think of it?
You maniacs! You blew it up! Ah, damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Hey, less references, more mopping.
Calling it the Simpsons Game heavily implies that this is the definitive Simpsons game and that there would be no need to make any more Simpsons games after this. And it's kinda true. A sequel was in the works, but it was cancelled in 2011. It was probably for the best. The Simpsons Game is currently the last original Simpsons game on consoles. EA since then have released mobile games featuring the Springfield faithful, those being Minutes to Meltdown, Itchy and Scratchy Land, a terrible port of the Konami arcade game, and Tapped Out, a game that keeps me up at night. It's kind of hard to choose which one of these I prefer, since they both are completely different mediums. It's like picking either a pizza or a burger. It really depends on what you feel like having in the moment. But I do think the movie is a better overall experience. Even taking into account that the game is a lot longer than the movie, I still had a much better time with the movie. The game got off to a good start, but by the time we got to the halfway point, I wanted it all to end. It was that boring. The novelty of playing as video game characters, being on the nose about being in a video game, wore off very quickly for me. If the characters in the movie were breaking the fourth wall as much as they were in the game, then I think I would have hated the film more. If it wasn't for the nostalgia I have for this game, the movie would have been clear by a landslide. So yeah, in summary, I'd say that the movie is better than the game.
Man, I really can't get over that Colin guy. He really gets under my skin. I'll probably just read a book to calm myself. It's called Wise Up Niall by Once upon a time, there was this man named Niall who thought all these crazy thoughts. I don't know much, but I do know one thing. Stereotypical Irish people are some useless animals. One day, Niall took a ride in his car. Here I go, but then, oops, and then, Niall, you would have drowned, but luckily, Colin was sitting on a pot of gold, and he saved your life. And so, before I said that stereotypical Irish people are some useless animals, but now I can see that not every stereotypical Irish person is so useless after all. The end. After reading this, I realised the writer's a fraud. How could someone be sitting on a pot of gold by a river? It doesn't make any sense!